Does College Football 26 Dynasty have an SEC bias? If you've watched any of my College Football 26 videos, or if you've played College Football 26 yourself, you would recognize that the SEC definitely is the dominant conference in Dynasty Mode. But today we're going to find out if there is truly a bias towards the conference itself. So what we're going to do in the first of our new series called College Football 26 Mythbusters is we're going to take 4 different 3-year Dynasty sims, and in each sim we're going to swap the SEC with a different power conference to see if there truly is an SEC bias just by virtue of the name of the SEC. So the SEC is going to switch. We're going to do the original setup with all the teams in their own conferences to get a test. Then we're going to switch the SEC with the Big Ten. Then we'll switch the SEC with the ACC, and then the Big 12. And we'll take stats for each of the conferences overall, and then we'll take stats for the sims in which the conference played as the SEC to see if there's a difference, and then obviously to see if the SEC has a difference between playing as the SEC or any of the other conferences as well. Okay, it's a simple setup, but it's going to take some time, so let's get to it so I can get you your video at noon as you expect. So we're rolling with Texas State today because I got this Astros hat on, and I am wearing maroon. Okay, so I decided the important thing is the college football playoffs, so we're just going to sim to the playoff each season. So it looks like we have 3 SEC teams in the first year with Oklahoma, Texas, and Georgia all in. We have 4 Big Ten teams, Ohio State, Washington, Michigan, and Penn State. 2 SEC teams with SMU and Duke. What I have realized is there is definitely a Duke bias because Duke is never making the college football playoff, and they make it all the time in my sims. Texas Tech mixed in for the Big 12, and then Tulane is our G5 representative out of the American. Let's sim, see what happens in the first year of the college football in our first sim. Okay, so Georgia makes it through barely against Tulane in the first round. Usually Georgia is wiping the whatever G5 team out in the first round as the 5 seed. They'll take on Duke in the second round. Washington wins the Big Ten matchup. They'll take on Penn State in another Big Ten matchup. Ohio State beats Notre Dame. They'll take on Oklahoma in the second round. So Georgia and Oklahoma are the 2 SEC teams that make it through. I should say Georgia's the 1 SEC team that makes it through. Oklahoma had a bye in the first round. Texas Tech beats Texas in the Texas Bowl round 1. Texas Bowl round 2 is in the Orange Bowl between SMU and Texas Tech. Okay, in year 1, there is no SEC bias as Georgia and Oklahoma lose. So they only have 1 win in the first round, or in our first college football playoff. The Big Ten already has 3 wins, or 4 wins, excuse me, because they got 2 wins in the first round, 2 wins in the second round. The ACC has 2 wins, so they don't have the most playoff appearances. They don't have the most wins. They're not even top 2 in wins in our first college football playoff. So we'll see if this actually bears out. So it's an all ACC national championship that SMU wins in our first season. So 4 wins for the ACC, 5 wins for the ACC in the first college football playoff, not expected. 4 for the Big Ten, 1 for the SEC, 1 for the Big 12, none for anybody else. And SMU is our first champion in our first year. So let's sim to next playoffs and see what happens in year 2 of our first sim. So here's our playoff for the second year. We have 3 SEC teams with Georgia, Florida, and Ole Miss. 4 from the Big Ten with Ohio State, Penn State, USC, and Michigan. We have Hawaii in for the first time that I've ever seen, I think, at least in a long time. 2 from the ACC with Duke coming back yet again, and Clemson in. SMU is not going to repeat. And then we have 2 from the Big 12 this year replacing Notre Dame, Texas Tech, who was in last year, and then BYU in for the first time this year. So let's see if the SEC can get back on track in year 2. Duke might be on another destiny run. They beat Hawaii by 3. The G5 has put up a good fight so far, but have yet to win a playoff game. Duke will take on USC in the second round. Florida gets smacked by Michigan. We got the game, big game, whatever it's called, Ohio State, Michigan, a rematch. It looks like maybe Ohio State won the first one. That's in the Orange Bowl. BYU takes on Georgia in the Fiesta Bowl after winning the Big 12 matchup, and then Ole Miss gets the SEC, its second win in the video so far, in the playoff at least, against Penn State. They will take on Clemson in the Peach Bowl. Duke, yet again, knocks off USC by 3 in the Cotton Bowl. They'll take on Michigan, who beat Ohio State by 3 in the Orange Bowl. They will face off in the Rose Bowl. We get 2 SEC wins, so the SEC has done much, much better in the second year. Georgia beats BYU 31-10. Ole Miss beats Clemson 41-16, so we're guaranteed to have at least one, or we're guaranteed to have one SEC team in the national championship game this season. The Duke Destiny run is over, but they have another chance next season to be the best team in this portion of the video. Michigan beats them 48-14. They will take on Georgia, who beat Ole Miss 31-6, kind of blowouts in the semifinal. So Georgia gets the SEC on the board with the 40-35 win in the national championship game. That's like the fourth straight video Georgia's won a national championship. So the SEC is on the board with their first national championship as the SEC, and by far their best season so far. So we got our third season with the SEC as the SEC. Duke is back yet again. They have a chance to really do it this season. This is a very new college football playoff for the third year of this first sim. And by the way, Texas State is going to its third straight bowl game. They're 1-1 so far. So Texas State is doing well. North Texas is in. They'll take on BYU as the G5 Big 12 matchup. BYU is in for their second straight season. Ohio State's in for their third straight season. Michigan is in for their third straight season. They'll face off in the college football playoff for the second straight time. Ole Miss is back yet again from last season. They got blown out in the semifinal by Georgia last season. They're back for revenge, but Georgia's nowhere to be found. Clemson is back for the second straight season. Houston, Nebraska, Miami, UCLA, Oregon are all in for the first time, and then we've got Duke back for the third time, looking to secure their spot as the best team in the first portion of our video here. Looks like we only have one SEC team represented by Ole Miss in this first, in the third year of this sim here. So kind of not a great showing by the SEC in this video to start. This might be the Big Ten's video because we have 3 of the 4 teams in the second round are Big Ten teams. Or I should say 3 of the 4 games have Big Ten teams. One of them has 2 Big Ten teams. So we have BYU versus Clemson, no G5 win in this first portion of the video. Ohio State knocks off Michigan in revenge for last season's college football playoff loss to Michigan. They'll take on Ole Miss. Nebraska beats Houston in the battle of the first timers. Duke will take on Nebraska in the second round to see if Duke can pull something off. UCLA beats Miami in the first round in another battle of the first timers. They will take on Oregon in the Rose Bowl in another battle of the first timers in a home game for UCLA up until next season when they go to SoFi. Duke couldn't do it for us. They had a very good showing this time, but Duke couldn't do it for us. So we get 2 wins from the Big Ten. Nebraska and Oregon both win to move on. They'll face off in the Cotton Bowl. Clemson beats BYU, and then Ole Miss has the SEC on its back. They win 59-27 against Ohio State. They'll take on Clemson. They need a win here to get into the national championship game to really prove the SEC's worth in this first part of the video, because we've had an ACC win, an SEC win, and we're for sure going to have a Big Ten team, but we could potentially have a Big Ten ACC matchup in the final national championship game with the SEC as the SEC. So it's Ole Miss, Nebraska. Ole Miss gets by Clemson by 4 points. Nebraska gets by Oregon by 3 points. Nebraska, Ole Miss for the championship in New Orleans in the final season of the SEC as the SEC. Ole Miss does it. So Ole Miss gets back-to-back national championships for the SEC. They knock off Nebraska 45-24. So that's 2 for the SEC, 1 for the ACC in our first sim with the SEC as the SEC. I'm now going to re-rack it. We're going to do the SEC as the Big Ten as the SEC, and we will see how it looks with that. We'll come back in the playoffs of the first year of that sim. Here we are. Big Ten as the SEC, SEC as the Big 10. So we've got UNLV as the G5 representative taking on Clemson in the first round, Michigan and Ohio State in an all-SEC matchup. Yet again, this is the third straight season they've played, going back to last video, as an SEC team. So I'm going to say the SEC bias is real here. Iowa and USC are facing off in the first round in another all-SEC matchup. UCLA and Oklahoma, that's SEC versus Big Ten. We've got Georgia as the Big Ten champion representative, Texas Tech as the Big 12, ACC from the Miami from the ACC, and then Oregon from the SEC as well. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Big Ten as SEC teams in the first year. That's more than we've seen from any conference so far in our video, regardless of what conference they are in. We have just 2 teams from the Big Ten, that is the SEC, 1 from the Big 12, and then 2 from the SEC, as well as our G5 representative. Texas State has made a bowl game every single season so far, but they lost their third straight. They're 1-3 so far through our sim, because we are rolling with Texas State again this time. Clemson beats UNLV 50-20. They'll take on Oregon, the SEC champion. Ohio State beats Michigan for the second straight playoff, so they will take on Miami in the Orange Bowl, of course, a home game for Miami. USC wipes the floor with Iowa 38-0. They'll take on Texas Tech. The Big Ten gets a victory over the SEC with Oklahoma beating UCLA in the first round. So we get an all Big Ten matchup between Oklahoma and Georgia. Then we have an SEC team in the other 3 games. USC versus Texas Tech, Ohio State versus Miami, and Oregon versus Clemson. But not as much success for the SEC in the second round. Clemson takes down Oregon. They will take on Miami, who also took down Ohio State. So it's an all SEC matchup in the Peach Bowl. USC does take down Texas Tech, and they will take on Georgia, the winner of the All Big Ten Bowl, in the Fiesta Bowl. Okay, something from the early 2000s. We have USC Clemson in the first national, or USC Miami in the first national championship in Miami. USC takes down Georgia in the SEC Big Ten matchup. The All ACC matchup, Miami beats Clemson. So we'll see if the Big Ten as the SEC can win in their first season. Woof. No, they cannot. Miami wins 55-13. ACC wins the first national championship in this sim, just like they did last time. The Big Ten has a good showing with 4 wins and 6 teams that make it in the first round. Let's see what happens year 2. Texas State is 4-8, and a white wide receiver just won the Heisman. So this is only year 2, 2026, and we're already getting that craziness. Okay, Tulane is in as a G5. Oregon is in from the SEC. UCLA in a Big Ten SEC matchup. It's the first time we see Tennessee. UCLA is back for like the 3rd time. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4 Big Ten as SEC teams. Arizona State's in for the first time. Pitt's in for the first time. LSU's in for the first time in our video. Miami is back as the defending national champion. USC is the loser, is trying to come back and win. We're only going to have potentially 1 Big Ten team in the national championship this season because all of them are in the top of the bracket. And then we have, 3 SEC as Big Ten teams in to start the 2026 college football playoff. Okay, so we're already guaranteed to get a Big Ten team in the national championship game because there's all Big Ten, or SEC teams, Big Ten as SEC teams, all in the quarterfinal in the top of the bracket. Oregon beats Tulane 35-0. UCLA beats Tennessee 35-30. That's the Nico Iamaleava Bowl. So it's all LA Bowl, UCLA versus USC in the Orange Bowl. That's a rematch of a game that happened earlier this season, almost certainly. So UCLA is trying to get their revenge. Oregon, Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. Clemson, LSU in a 2020 national championship rematch in the Fiesta Bowl. And then Pitt taking on Georgia in the Peach Bowl. So very well we could have a Big Ten versus SEC national championship game in the second year. USC is marching back to the national championship game. They beat UCLA 47-41. Ohio State gets past Oregon 44-41. Ton of points scored in the top of the bracket there. Clemson gets past LSU 34-28. They will take on Georgia, who beat Pitt 37-21. So again, we will get a SEC team. Will we be against an SEC or a Big Ten team in the national championship? USC will not be back in the national championship game. We have Ohio State versus Georgia. Georgia won the second national championship in our first sim. Will they do it again this time? History repeats itself, ladies and gentlemen. So Georgia wins the second one. We had an ACC win the first one last time. ACC won the first one this time. Georgia won the second one last time. Georgia wins the second one this time. That's their second national championship in the video. The third for the SEC overall. So I don't know what this is showing us so far, but we got one more time with the SEC as the Big Ten as the SEC. Texas State missed another bowl game, and Arch Manning just won the Heisman as the Georgia quarterback. So this sim is stupid. Okay, Oklahoma State will take on Nebraska. Nebraska is an SEC team that makes it in. USC is an SEC team that makes it in. Other than that, we have no other SEC teams that make it in. There are 4 Big Ten teams that make it in with LSU, Georgia, Texas, and Auburn in. And then we have Notre Dame back in for the first time since our first sim. Louisville's in for the first time as an ACC team. Oklahoma State is in for the first time as a Big 12 team. So not a good start for the SEC as Oklahoma State gets a win in the first round in their first appearance. They'll take on Auburn, who also has their first appearance in our video so far. Texas Tech will take on USC. USC has the lone hopes of the Big Ten as the SEC on its back here. Louisville gets a win in their first appearance. Notre Dame gets a win in their first appearance since the first part of the video. Georgia is still alive to go back-to-back, which would be the first time we've had a back-to-back in any of my videos. So the USC fails as the lone Big Ten SEC representative remaining. We have 3 SEC teams as Big Ten teams remaining to win a national championship, and then Texas Tech has the hopes of everybody else in their hands against Auburn. History truly repeats itself. So Auburn knocks off Texas Tech, and then they knock off Georgia in the national championship game. So we had an ACC team win it, Georgia win it, and then a lower tier SEC team win it in the third season in both of our first two sims. The SEC gets 2 national championships out of the 3 yet again. Okay, we're going to do the ACC next. We're going to speed run these ones where we go straight to the college football national championship game each season because we're getting a little long on this video. Okay, our first year of the ACC as the SEC has Southern Miss making it. We have Louisville back in it for the second time. We have Iowa State in for the first time as a Big 12 team. Oregon makes it back. Miami as an SEC team won. Clemson as an SEC team won 2 games. Miami made it to the national championship game against Georgia. They won the first national championship game last time. Georgia has made it to 3 straight national championship games. And this time, so we have Miami and Georgia, which I think it wasn't the first year matchup last time. It was Miami USC. But again, both of these teams have won a national championship so far. Georgia has actually won 2 so far. Georgia breaks the cycle of history. They beat Miami in the first year of the ACC as the SEC and the SEC as the ACC. That is the 5th national championship in now 7 years for the SEC. Miami is back at the national championship for the 2nd straight season, and the ACC as the SEC had a pretty good playoff here. So Toledo makes it in for the first time as the G5 representative. Baylor makes it in for the first time as a Big 12 team. Everybody else we've seen in the playoff at least once. The Big Ten has a very good season here with both Ohio State and Michigan making it to the semifinal. Georgia gets knocked off by Ohio State in the quarterfinal, as well as Michigan kind of wiping the floor with Arizona State. Louisville and Miami and Pitt all make it as ACC as SEC teams. Miami finds their way back to the national championship game for the 2nd straight season, where they will take on Ohio State to see if the ACC as the SEC can win their first national championship, or if Ohio State could win the Big Ten their first national championship in the entire video going on season 8. Ohio State gets their first national championship, the Big Ten's first national championship in the 8th year of our video so far. Still, no team has won a national championship as another conference team as the SEC. Both the Big Ten and the ACC have struck out so far. Let's see what the final season of the ACC as the SEC has in store. 3rd straight season that we have an ACC as an SEC team in the national championship. We didn't get Miami even in the playoff this time, but Pitt has made it there for the first time in the video. Auburn has already won a national championship, so Pitt is here to keep Auburn from winning their 2nd of the video. New teams that we have in Boise State for the first time, Florida State for the first time, Kansas State for the first time. Oh, Miami did actually make it back. They lose in their opening game against Pitt. Pitt came in as the 5 seed, so that was a 4-5. Everybody else we've seen in the playoff so far. Washington's making its biggest run. Michigan we've seen as a constant. Other than that, our Tulane we've had like 4 or 5 times in the playoff so far, this being our 9th season in the sim. Auburn wins their 2nd of the video. That's the 6th in 9 seasons for the SEC. We have 2 ACC championships, 1 Big Ten championship. Other than that, we've got all SEC, and no teams have won as the SEC that aren't originally from the SEC. So really not showing that the bias is actually there. They just have the teams as better in the SEC than the rest of the country. One more sim. We're doing the Big 12 as the SEC to see if we can find anything different, but so far our hypothesis is incorrect. Believe it or not, this is Alabama's first time in the playoff in now our 10th season. They went 1 for 10 in the first 10 seasons of the college football playoff in our sim. James Madison's in for the first time as well. We see Iowa State back for one of the first times. Texas A&M is in for the first time as well. So the Big 12 has been nice to Alabama and Texas A&M. We do see Texas Tech as a Big 12, as an SEC team in the national championship in the first season. However, they're the only, and Iowa State and them are the only 2 teams that have made it from the Big 12 to the SEC. The thing is that most seasons the Big 12 has only had 1 team in. So what I'm noticing is that as the SEC, these conferences tend to get more playoff teams than they get when they're not the SEC. However, they have not won national championships, so it's kind of a flip of what happens with the SEC. Denied yet again. Still no teams have won as an SEC team that are not originally an SEC team. Alabama gets its first national championship of the video. So it's just Texas Tech for the Big 12 this season, and they lose in their only game. The SEC, as the Big 12, got Oklahoma, Auburn, Georgia's back in it this season. So, basically all teams that we've seen so far, nothing new here. Penn State's back for the first time in a long time. SMU's back for the first time in a long time. Other than that, this is pretty chalk. I mean, of course, we have Tulane in here, which Tulane just has been dominating as the G5 team so far. But we will have a new national champion as Clemson and Oklahoma. Neither of those teams have won it, but we will not get a Big 12 national champion this season. Another one for the SEC. That's the second straight in this final sim with the Big 12 as the SEC. And I don't even know what number we're at. This is at 8 total for the entire video out of, this is our 11th season. So only 3 times has the SEC not won the national championship in this video. Final season with the Big 12 as the SEC, and then we'll wrap it up at the end. The Big 12 failed, and Georgia might just be inevitable. Georgia is in line to win its fourth national championship of the video, one for each of the sims. The Big 12 got BYU, Arizona State in, so 2 teams in again. So again, they're probably going to get more teams this sim than they did in the other sims, but they didn't pull it off. They lose in the first round, BYU to Georgia. They lose in the second round to Notre Dame, so they're losing to the national championship teams, but they still don't make it in. North Texas gets our first G5 win of the video in the final sim, so that's good. They were the number 7 team. North Texas seems to have some success in these sims, so we might play around with that a little bit here in the future. Other than that, really it comes down to, is Georgia going to win their 4th national championship of the video? Georgia wins its 4th of the video. The SEC gets 9 of the 12 national championships that we do in a total of 12 years. This was crazy. So what did we learn? There probably isn't a SEC bias towards this conference specifically, but the SEC teams might be better set up to be successful in college football 26 as you sim this playoff here. So the SEC ends up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 34 playoff appearances overall by 10 different teams. And they win the national championship 9 times. 6 of those appearances came when they were the SEC, and 2 of the national championships came when they were the SEC. The Big Ten, I think, had the most appearances. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 44 appearances overall. They get it by 9 different teams. 12 of those appearances came as the SEC. No national championships as the SEC. Only 1 national championship in the entire video for the Big Ten. The ACC is probably the surprising one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 29 appearances, 2 national championships. None of those national championships came as the SEC. The Big 12 did tend to do a little bit better as the SEC, as they had 5 appearances, 5 of their total 17 appearances in the 3 seasons they were the SEC by 4 different teams, and they got 4 wins in the college football playoff when they only got 11 wins total. So they did a little bit better as the SEC, but again, no national championships for them. 9 for the SEC, 2 for the ACC, 1 for the Big Ten, only the ACC, 1 as the ACC. So what does that tell you? I don't know. Take it as you will. Thanks for watching that video. Make sure that you like and subscribe and hype the video. It helps small content creators. I'm a small content creator, and I could use all the help I can get. If you made it this far, leave a comment and let me know what you think. This was a marathon of a video, so thank you for watching. Do you like these kind of videos where we're testing things? Would you like it to be a little bit shorter? Let me know what you would change about this particular video if you did watch it all the way through. Other than that, if you want to watch more videos, I do have those for you. Over here, I got my video that I did last week, which is college football 26 if Michigan and USC were independent. So check that one out if you haven't seen it yet. I've got my most popular video that I've done with College Football 26, which is College Football 26 with conferences from 1996. If you haven't seen that one, check it out. Other than that, I've got my subscribe link on this side here, and we'll check you next time. See ya!